Welcome to episode 2 of the Freedom Hustles podcast, the podcast dedicated to giving you all the best hassle-free hustles, give you more time, money, and freedom. My name is John Banks from sidingcommand.com, and I'm with Andy Lehman, owner of freedomskillsacademy.com.
Hello.
So, okay then, Andy, what's the topic of today?
Well, I'm basically going to talk about how to create and make money from satirical news websites. I'm assuming you've seen them. There's loads of them at the moment, and quite a few in different niches. But at the moment, they're all over Facebook, which is not really surprising considering the state of the political arena around the world at the moment. So, what I like about these kind of websites is that they're very easy to make. Mm-hmm. Basically, you can knock one up within a few minutes. I mean, you know yourself that it's a basic WordPress website. And the stories, majority of the stories are no more than 500 words long. I would say the average is around 300 words long. Yeah. And the subject matter is whatever is happening in the world, and they are just simple to create, as long as you've got a bit of a creative bent to it.
Yeah. So these are then just real kind of basic, they don't have to be flash looking websites. They don't have to be, really hard. I guess the main key here is that they kind of work on a mobile phone.
Yeah.
Because I guess most of the sort of shares, and it's going to be your people from your Facebook feed and that sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, majority of the people these days search or use Facebook and Twitter through their mobile phone. So as long as the content is mobile friendly, but it's one of those websites or one of those sort of business models where the actual front page is really irrelevant. It's just the actual story page, because you share the story, and then people go back to that story. They may go through, once they got to the website, they may go through others. You'll have links to other stories and stuff like that. But it is basically that story that you publish on Facebook, on Twitter, is the main. That's the main destination. So basically, it's just a simple WordPress theme. Like you said, there doesn't need to be any sort of whistles and bells. As long as it's mobile friendly, as long as it's easy to use and navigate, and I suppose easy to read. But like I say, the content is that short. It's the kind of thing you can actually read while walking to the bathroom. It is that short, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So but yeah.
So I mean, like I guess there's a few examples here that we could share with the listeners. I mean, an obvious one for me, an obvious one that springs to mind is a website called The Onion.
Yes, definitely. That's one.
One of the sort of American, based around the American news and current events over there, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that one's been around for years. There's The Onion. In a different niche, there's actually Wonderground Music. Now, that focuses just on the music industry. That's quite an interesting niche. So you don't always have to be, just
news,
covering every aspect. You can go niche deep if you really wanted to. You do sort of, you will have a smaller sort of potential fan base. I mean, you wouldn't want to do one particularly on horse racing or horse riding, sorry. But with the news, the way things are happening, there's Newsthump, which is a popular UK one, which they create. I mean, they have staff of writers, so they can't be doing too bad. I mean, I know with ad blockers and stuff like that, there's been a few issues at the moment, but they have a staff of writers. They send ideas into the main bloke, whoever's in charge. Do you like this idea? And he'll say yay or nay, and then they write this article and publish it. And I've seen them publish about 7 a day, possibly even more, and they get lots of shares. So there's obviously a large amount of people going back to the website to read the articles. So you've got Newsthump, there's the Rotherham Bugle, the Rochdale Herald, the Lincolnshire Sausage. There's just so many different types. I've got a list as long as your arm. Some of them I haven't seen for a while. Made in Ireland, I think, is another one.
And these are, and basically, so the core basis of these ones, what you're talking about there, is the sort of, it is basically, isn't it? It's the sort of made up fun story. It's literally just like you say, a 500 word. It can be completely left field and completely made up, or it could be perhaps something that's in the news and then just sort of twisted a little bit, and that sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. There's just so much to pick up in the news today. I mean, there's so many characters. I mean, at the moment, Boris Johnson and Donald Trump have been getting a bit of a ribbing regularly. Tommy Robinson is another guy. They write their own story. So basically, you don't even have to try that hard. I mean, the fact that you've got one guy who's been moaning about refugees and now becomes a refugee to escape the country.
So then you've got
his family, supposedly.
It's content already there, isn't it?
Itself. But yeah, I mean, I've seen stories with like Donald Trump supposedly becoming a Sith Lord in Star Wars. It's just, you take a story, you take a person, and then you just expand on it within such a bizarre, comical way. And like copywriting, like a lot of the I use the term clickbait, but a lot of the headlines are designed to tell the story, but they're also exciting enough and interesting enough to make you want to click through and read what they're actually saying. But I mean, there's just sometimes it can get a little bit difficult, sort of trying to think up something like, say, too left field, because there's so many people doing it and there's so many different angles to go from. But the stories are there. You can you could potentially write 5 or 6 articles a day, post them out onto Facebook, and get lots and lots of shares.
So that's brilliant. So then let's move on to that then. So so like we've sort of touched on a few points there. So things like the headline, not mass spammy clickbait, but that has to be intriguing enough so that people are going to want to click. I guess that, I mean, even probably the thumbnail image that you use to a degree has to be sort of worthy. I mean, basically, you want that, you want people to stop that thumb scroll, don't you? That's the whole point of this. Is people that are stood in the queue at the post office, or on their commute on the way to work, or on their lunch break or whatever, and they're just skimming through, and you want that sort of click. And then I guess I mean, we haven't really talked about it yet, but I'm guessing that the main monetization methods are just AdSense and advertising networks.
They are, yeah. There's basically, I would say, 2. AdSense is the biggest. I do believe that some of them used to be using Facebook. They used to partner with Facebook. I don't know too much about that. Facebook used to pay.
Articles, Facebook
articles. Facebook articles, that was all right, yeah. So they used to get paid for that. But then once they started to sort of cut down on fake news, those websites fell out of favour. And I'll tell you why shortly when I get on to talking about the guy in the United States. But it's mainly it's advertising revenue from AdSense. There may be content ad, and some of the bigger ones may have sort of Taboola or is it Outbrain or something like that.
The sort of native ad networks,
Yeah, I mean, Viral Nova, which was a big website back in the day, they used to have, I think it was Taboola, and as well as AdSense. And they were rumoured at their height to be making at least sort of between $500,000 and $800,000 a month. But that was in 2016. And they sold for $100 million to a media company now. I don't know if they ever got the money back, or because the last time I looked at Viral Nova, it's a different website to what it was when it was flying.
It didn't. For me, I think the takeover, I know, obviously we don't know the numbers, but I think I'd agree with you there. It did go a little bit, it almost went too spammy, and it just got a bit too much, didn't it?
But the beautiful thing about Viral Nova is that if you think of a sort of a traditional business, or a traditional online business, offline business, they have lots of staff. Viral Nova at its height, I believe, had, because the guy who originally set it up was working 16 hours a day himself, doing everything, writing the articles and then sharing them, and then he eventually took on a couple of staff, which was basically a couple of writers. I believe he outsourced the writing to. I don't know if they came to an office. I don't know if there was US based or if there was overseas. Well, there was possibly at the most like 3 or 4 people,
Amazing.
in total. And this was a website which sold for $100 million, rumoured to be making over $500,000 per month at its height from no more than 3 or 4 blokes.
I mean, it's amazing. I think, I mean, we should probably touch on that. I mean, because we built a few of these sites over the years. I mean, and I think Viral Nova was kind of one of our sort of inspirations, wasn't it? I mean, going back probably 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, we made a couple of these sites, and they were successful back then. I mean, it was a lot. I wouldn't say it was easier, but certainly in terms of organic reach on Facebook, it was a lot easier. And I think even the model that we used, which was the kind of click arbitrage model. So we were basically, I mean, we built a couple of these sites, and we would be running Facebook ads to the website, knowing that it didn't matter because we would make more back from the advertising revenue than what we were spending on the Facebook ads. So, we could spend $100 on Facebook ads, knowing that we'd get $200 or $300 on the back end. So it was fine. But then obviously things changed. I don't know if more people entered the space, or when Facebook went, tried to claw back as much money as it could, it was ads become more expensive and this, that, and the other. So our kind of model's finished. But I mean, I still see these sites going, and I guess they're trying. It's kind of hitting that nerve, isn't it, and getting that viral effect. And maybe you might have to write 20 posts, only one of them really to take off. But
that's that's the important part. They're going viral because, as you say, when the advertising sort of got harder, but if you get something going viral, it rockets. I mean, I'm just looking at a screenshot now of one of the posts from the Rotherham Bugle. And the headline says, "Furious Queen challenges Meghan to a straightener in the Palace car park." Now, I wasn't sure what a straightener was. It basically means sorting out a problem. It's a fight in a car park.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a sort of a Yorkshire term, but that article, I can tell you now, was not advertised. They do not run advertising to the Rotherham Bugle. No. And that one had 8.3 thousand shares and 37,272 engagements. This is as the screenshot, so there could have been a lot more since. Reactions were 2,216.
There you go. Yeah, so
that's a lot of shares.
Yeah, and the bread and butter, it wouldn't have been. We're not talking like a 2,500 word article with images and videos. We're literally talking a couple of paragraphs, bit of a funny side to it, and then move on to the next.
You see, when the sites that we did was a lot more in depth. We were, searching. We would do like 13, 20 images with some writing. Then we would embed advertisements and T-shirts, merchandise. That's the other way that they make money, the other form of income. And you could be doing an article for about an hour, knocking out an article and then opening it and go. These things, they just write them within 20 minutes. I mean, they can do 1.5 an hour, and I can tell you now, there's a friend of mine, he owns one of these websites, and I had an idea for an article for him. So I actually was writing him a Facebook message to give him my idea for the article. I was sat in the little boys' room at the time, and by the time I'd finished writing down my idea, I'd near enough wrote the whole article. So I just copied it into Google Docs, finished it off, sent it to him. It went on his website. It took me possibly 5-10 minutes at the most to get this article. And when he actually put it on to his website, it wasn't a huge earner because his website's not one of the biggest ones. I can tell you now that it made around 20 quid within the sort of the first day.
That's great, yeah.
In advertising.
And that's done now, that's out there. He can reshare that again. You know what I mean? If he's got a group, if he's got a Facebook group that all follow this particular news site, then that can be shared again, and there you go. It's already done. So you basically just wrote it out to him.
Yeah, it has been shared a few times since it went live originally. Because, like a lot of the news websites, apart from Newsthump, which is sort of more global, a lot of them seem to be choosing specific locations. So you've got like the Lincolnshire Sausage, the Rotherham Bugle. You've got they choose either towns, countries, or major cities.
That's easier it'll be easier to build an audience, or like a Facebook audience, out of if you went specific. Do you know what I mean? You'd be able to generate your Facebook page or your Facebook group would be easier to target.
It taps in as well to like local rivalry. So you've got like football rivalry down where you are in Southampton. I don't know who yours is. It Pompey? Is it Portsmouth, Plymouth? One of those?
Oh yeah, Pompey. Yeah,
Pompey. Yeah. So you've got these. You'll have these like local sort of rivalry. So where I am up in sort of, you got Gainsborough, Scunthorpe, Lincoln, Hull, Sheffield, Rotherham. They all have their own rivalry. So you can they'll be like, did you see that article about Lincoln last night? And
exactly.
Such and such an estate, and people start sharing. I mean, one of them that was written about Scunthorpe was getting shared by lots of Scunthorpe people. It tapped into their psychology. It was based on the programme Skint, which was filmed there, and it was crazy. I mean, I know I've seen one to do with Hull when Priti Patel came out with some sort of immigration new law, something to do with that people going into the country who should have to speak English. And so this one basically said that 95% of people in Hull will have to be deported. And I actually sat and watched this article get shared. And again, that was a picture was taken from Google. The article was written for like 5-10 minutes. It wasn't a big one. And it was getting shared because the people in Hull and around Hull found it sort of funny, even though it kind of insulted, I suppose, majority of Hull.
Just say, anyone listening from Hull, we don't mean any offence. It was just an article. But anyway.
Just a satirical article.
Just a satirical article. Okay, so good. So we've talked about, there's a couple of monetization methods you mentioned. That obviously we're familiar with, but again, let's just go over it. So we've got AdSense, so people can make money from advertising. AdSense is fairly easy to get in. I think it's a few months. I think once your site's up and running for a few months, they tend to take applications okay. There are other ad networks. You've got, we talked about the native ads. These are the ones that kind of sit at the bottom, which kind of look like your more sort of related stories. People are also reading it. They almost look like another post on that site, but they're not. But or content ad. Yeah, I mean, all big media outlets using them. I've seen them on major newspapers before. So you've got those two, and the other one you mentioned, I just want to quickly go over, which was, you said T-shirts. Now, how does that work?
Well, the great thing about today, 2020, and the internet is that you can actually add a T-shirt to your post within minutes. It doesn't have to be your T-shirt. There's plenty of websites you can go to where you can be an affiliate. So, for example, there's Sunfrog, and if you sell someone, it's actually kind of funny that if you've got a Sunfrog account where you're the artist, you earn $2 or $3, possibly, probably a bit more if it's a hoodie or a T-shirt for the design of it. But as an affiliate, you earn far more. So, I mean, you can actually write an article about, I mean, it's not satire, but if you wrote something about Dachshund dogs and then went to Sunfrog, found a T-shirt that was to do with Dachshund dogs, put it in there. If anybody buys it, you could walk away with about between $6 and $7. And you've only done a couple of minutes' work. You've got Amazon merch, which is something you know about.
So you could become an Amazon affiliate. You could, and then,
Yeah, I mean, you could design these yourself because it's very easy to design T-shirts these days. Or you go to Fiverr.com, get someone to design them for you, upload them to Sunfrog or to Amazon merch if you've got the account. There's a new one which you've been investigating just recently called Redbubble. Is that correct?
Yeah. So there's a whole. I mean, that's got a whole there's a ton of merch on there that you can, create. Yeah, everything from stickers to, mats to clothing to shower curtains, bedspreads, everything. So you could basically, so you said, so you could almost, if you did an article about a specific topic, let's say, for example, you mentioned there Dachshund dogs. If you did, top 10 cutest dog poses of 2020 or whatever, I'm just thinking just on the spot. Yeah, so you would have the money, the monetization methods from that. If that post took off, you would have the AdSense, you would have the native ads at the bottom, and I mean, not overdo it, but if you did put a link or a picture of maybe one T-shirt in, because we've done this, and like you say, it worked, didn't it? I mean, the ones that took off, we would make money from all three of those, I think we were doing okay. And it was, it is fine. And I think we just recap again, the key part for it now is probably to be a little bit more niche rather than trying to do the massive take on, the whole space again. But if you niche down, and there are ways of doing it either by topic or location or even both, then I think you probably have a bit more success. Just before we close, I'm just getting keeping an eye on the time, but you done some sort of challenge, didn't you? Is that right?
Yeah, I wanted to basically see how easy it was to write satirical articles. I was putting myself into the mindset of someone who had a job. Like, say, a friend of mine, he has a website, and he writes a lot of his stuff while he's actually at work. He's a lathe operator in a factory, and so he uses his mobile phone. He uses Google Docs, which is a free app and a free service you get if you've got a Gmail account. So you can get the app on your phone. It syncs to your cloud-based server, so you can go onto your laptop at a later date. But his website's made from WordPress, so he can actually still upload straight away to WordPress from work. And so I wanted to test and just see with one of our websites if I could, for a period of time, so I did 2 weeks, I did 15 days. Every day I would write a satirical article with my mobile phone. So not as good as this one. This one's a new one. So basically I would write just with my thumbs. A couple of times I actually spoke ideas and then edited them. So I would put on with the Google Docs, you've got a fantastic speech to text recorder app software.
I think we mentioned we mentioned a bit of that on episode 1, didn't we? The writing one. But yeah, go on, carry on.
So I basically would just go and slink off somewhere and then write an article. I would think what was happening in the news and then just write something funny. And I did it for 15 days straight. And I took images off Google. I know you're not supposed to, but with it being political, all the papers are using pictures of Boris Johnson and stuff like that. So there's Donald Trump. You just go to Google, try and find something that was that matches what you was writing, and then I would actually add it to a website using the phone, and then I would publish it. So everything was done every day for 15 days. I wrote a satirical article, no more than 300-400 words, published live through a website.
So it's the sort of thing someone could do on their lunch break, isn't it, every day, or on their commute to work or something like that.
And this is what my mate Adrian does. He better say he's at work when people are not in his ear, sort of jabbering on when he's got 5 minutes. Before he used to do crosswords, but since he does this now, he'll sit and write something. And because the machine, for anybody who's listening, it's one of them big, high-powered, computerized machines. It's safe. It's got all these safety. He just has to set it up and then monitor it. So while he's actually sat there, he writes out these articles on his phone. It's something that anybody can do. And like I said, I sent him an idea for an article once, and when he published it, it made him sort of between £10 and £20 that day.
Yeah.
And it was like 5 minutes work.
That's brilliant.
And when we compare to a lot of the other things that we've often discussed in the past, sort of doing surveys or where you get paid pennies for watching videos and adverts.
Yeah.
It's if you can write, if you've got a fairly good sort of idea, sort of a comical brain, and you can come up with these ideas, and knock up a couple of articles, 5 minutes, stick them online, share them on Facebook. You go to Facebook groups, you set up a Facebook page. Again, everything is free.
Yeah, it's all free.
Everything you pay for is website.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, the only thing you've got to pay for is hosting, which a few dollars or a few pounds a month, which if you could knock out 10, 15 posts, you're going to make that back on the advertising, and then hopefully then you grow it and it. Yeah, so I think okay.
There's 2 more points I'd just like to say before we quickly disappear. If you go into local sort of niches, like we mentioned with the Rochdale and the Rotherham Bugle, it's highly possible that if you are getting quite a good following, and you're not rubbing people up the wrong way, you could actually get advertising revenue from local businesses who are possibly like tattoo parlours or places like that, who are not so, they don't need to be so sort of careful of what their brand is associated to. But you could actually have local companies advertising on your website, because if you're focusing into a specific area and getting a following, then,
sure.
You're spot on.
That actually could end up being another way of monetizing it.
Mm-hmm.
Proper, like you say, ad placements aimed specifically at local businesses. Because again, if you're targeting a certain area, then why not? Why wouldn't people do that? But okay, so that's.
If you've got, if you can prove that you're getting, say, several thousand views on your website a day, compared to people who advertise in local papers, which once they come through the door can often get in the bin. These are people who come into your website. They're not just happy to be walking past and looking in your window. They've come to your website.
They've gone to you.
If you prove you're getting thousands, you could be charging, £15 a month for just one advert to be shown across pages, or 20. I've seen websites charging sort of hundreds. Big websites. But you consider the prices have just gone up recently. But SiteGround, you could get a website with the domain name and hosting for around 2 years. It was like $150. In English, that's about £130. Let's say £150 or £200 for 2 years of premium online web space. You make your money back easy, if not a lot more. There was a guy in America, I don't mention his name, Justin Cooler, I think his name was. He was making around $30,000 a month with his mates. They had jobs, so they were working on the website while they were doing their jobs. It was around the time of the US election, and they pushed the envelope. They were basically creating funny stories, but then they were taking it to the extreme where the conspiracy theorists were starting to share their articles,
thinking it was real.
And they were saying things about Donald Trump and
I can imagine.
What's her name? I can't remember her name now.
Hillary.
Yeah. There was all about talking about Hillary. And so these were getting shared, and they had like 2 or 3 websites, and they were generating $30,000 a month, publishing basically BS. Funny BS. That's really all it was, purposely just tapping in to people's paranoia, people's passions.
To
do with the news.
And that's it. I think slight controversy, that sort of thing, that's going to win the game. And then, so I think just to wrap up then, my sort of closing thoughts on this would be, it's a low cost gig. It's a very minimal entry fee. You've got your hosting, and that's about it. Like you say, every other tool after that is free. You can share it on all your social media platforms, share it with your mates to begin with, get it on growing like that. Point 2, I think, like you mentioned, try and be a little bit niche now. Try and be a bit specific, maybe target a certain location.
If you do target a location, you can still do world news or national news.
It could always be a separate category, couldn't it? You could do the Lincolnshire Sausage or the Rotherham Bugle, aim it specifically at that, but then there's nothing to stop you writing about, Donald Trump or anything else that's kicking off in the world. If it's big news,
it's the target.
Exactly, yeah. So, anything else to add?
Basically, like I say, it's extremely easy. As you mentioned, it's cheap entry into. The other week I was looking at a franchise for bin cleaning. I think it was about £14,000 to learn how to clean bins. I don't know if you've got branding and a bit of help from an existing business. Whereas with this, you can have a website for £200 for 2 years.
There you go.
Everything else after that is free. Spending £14,000 before you've even earned a penny, £200, and you could actually you technically could earn money from day one. Apart from, as you said, AdSense needs to watch your website grow. So you give yourself a couple of months to put content on there, get it live, get a bit of a following. Then after that, but we personally have seen, and there was 1 month we sold $1,000 worth of t-shirts.
That was just t-shirt, and that was the lowest out of the 3 earners, wasn't it? I think the AdSense far blew that away, and I think the native ads was probably higher than that. But so there you go. So that's a good little way to end. I think we'll have so again, those 4 monetization methods we talked about. You got AdSense on it, native ads. You can sell merch, and then, like Andi said, if it ever grows and you get a decent enough traffic, then you can definitely sell ad placements as well. So I hope you liked that. That was episode 2 of the Freedom Hustles podcast. I've been John Banks at sidingcommand.com with
Andy Lehman of freedomskillsacademy.com.
And thanks very much for listening, and we shall see you on the next one.
Cheers. Bye-bye.